I gave my sister the same support she gave me when I was broke, and now she won't speak to me. 5 years ago, I lost everything. My startup failed spectacularly. My apartment lease ended the same week, and I had $400 to my name. I called my sister, practically begging for help. Just a place to crash for a month while I found work. She lived in a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with her husband, just the two of them rattling around in all that space. "I can't enable your poor choices," she said, her voice cold and measured. "You need to learn responsibility. You made your bed." She suggested I look into local shelters and actually sent me a link to Dave Ramsey's website. Financial discipline starts with accountability. That month, I slept in my 2004 Honda Civic through a brutal January, showering at Planet Fitness at 5 a.m., applying to jobs from the public library. I ate one meal a day, usually dollar menu items. My sister posted vacation photos from Cabo that same week, cocktails on the beach with captions about self-care and living your best life. I clawed my way back, took a soul-crushing sales job I hated, lived with 3 roommates in a basement apartment, saved every penny that didn't go to ramen and bus fare. Within 2 years, I'd paid off my debts. Within 4, I'd started a new company with a former colleague who believed in my vision. Last year, it sold for $2.3 million. My sister's husband left her 3 months ago, cleaned out their joint account and disappeared with his 24-year-old assistant. She lost the house in foreclosure, her car got repossessed, and she's drowning in credit card debt from trying to maintain appearances while her marriage crumbled. She called me crying at midnight. "I have nowhere to go. Mom and Dad won't help because they think I was stupid with money. And honestly, they're probably right." She paused, voice breaking. "You're my only option, please. I have a 5-bedroom house now, 3 guest rooms sitting empty with fresh sheets and furniture I've never used. I could write her a check for 6 months' rent without even checking my balance. Instead, I said, 'I can't enable your poor choices. You need to learn responsibility.' Then I texted her the exact same Dave Ramsey link she'd sent me 5 years ago. 'Are you serious right now?' She whispered. 'Dead serious. I learned so much sleeping in my Honda. Character building, really. You'll thank me later.' The line went completely quiet for 10 seconds. 'I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm your sister.' 'Neither could I said calmly. 'But here we are.' She hung up. Then came the texts. Novels about family, loyalty, and forgiveness, and how I'm different because I actually have money now. How she was just protecting her marriage back then, and her husband had opinions about freeloading relatives. How cruel I'm being when she's at her absolute lowest point. I haven't responded to a single message. Last week, Mom called. 'Your sister's living in an extended stay motel on Route 9. This is getting serious. You have the means to help her, and you're choosing not to.' 'So do you,' I replied. 'That's not the point,' Mom snapped. 'You're being vindictive and petty.' 'I'm being consistent,' I said. She taught me that family doesn't owe you anything when times get hard. I'm just honoring her philosophy. This morning, my sister showed up at my house unannounced. She looked terrible. Dark circles, unwashed hair, wearing the same jacket I'd seen in her desperate selfies for days. My security camera caught her sitting in her beater car for 20 minutes, clearly gathering courage, before finally walking to my door. When I answered, she wasn't crying. She was angry. 'You know what the worst part is?' she said, voice shaking. I waited. 'The worst part is that I would have done the exact same thing if our positions were reversed today. 5 years later, I still wouldn't let you stay with me, even knowing what you went through, even seeing how you survived it. That caught me off guard. 'So why are you here?' I asked. 'Because I needed to tell you that you were right.' She laughed, but it was hollow. I was cruel. I was selfish. I told myself I was teaching you a lesson, but really I just didn't want my life inconvenienced. Trevor said you were a loser, and I agreed because it was easier than defending you. Trevor. Her ex-husband's name tasted bitter just hearing it. And now I'm living in a roach-infested room that costs $89 a night, and I can only afford it for another week. I'm applying to jobs I'm overqualified for, and getting rejected because I've been out of work for 3 years. I eat ramen for dinner. Real ramen, not the trendy restaurant kind I used to Instagram." She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A dim room with water-stained walls, a bed that sagged in the middle, and a tiny microwave on a dresser. I shower at the truck stop down the road because the motel shower has black mold. I do my makeup in a bathroom that smells like diesel and urinal cakes. And every single day, I think about that month you spent in your car. I stayed silent. I used to drive past homeless people and think they must have made terrible decisions, that if they'd just worked harder, been smarter, been more responsible, they wouldn't be there. And now I'm 2 weeks away from being one of them. So you want my pity? No, she met my eyes. I want you to know that you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me forgiveness. You don't owe me money or a place to stay or even this conversation. I came here to tell you that I finally understand what I did to you, and I'm sorry. She turned to leave. Wait, I said. She stopped but didn't turn around. Do you actually understand? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? She turned back and her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. I understand that when you called me that night 5 years ago, you weren't asking me to solve your problems. You were asking for basic human decency from your only sibling. You were asking me to remember that we grew up together, that we used to be close, that family should mean something when everything else falls apart. And I told you to figure it out yourself because it was inconvenient for me. Because Trevor thought you were irresponsible. Because I'd never struggled, so I couldn't imagine how bad it really was. I told myself I was helping you learn a lesson. She wiped her eyes roughly. But I wasn't teaching you anything. I was just being comfortable and cruel at the same time. And now I'm learning that same lesson in that disgusting motel room. And you know what? I don't feel like I'm growing as a person. I don't feel character building happening. I just feel scared and alone and like I'm drowning a little more each day. I leaned against my door frame. You texted me photos of Trevor's fancy birthday dinner the week I was sleeping in my car. Do you remember that? She closed her eyes. Yes. What was the caption? Blessed beyond measure, she whispered, with a gratitude hashtag. I saw that while I was parked outside a 24-hour diner, trying to stay warm, charging my phone so I could keep applying to jobs. I'd had half a stale bagel for breakfast, nothing for lunch. That photo made me so hungry I felt dizzy. I'm sorry. You commented on my Facebook post asking for help. Do you remember what you said? She nodded slowly. I said tough love is still love, and that you'd thank me someday when you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. 17 people liked that comment, including Mom. She flinched. So here's what I need to know, I said. Are you sorry because you're in the same position now? Or are you sorry because you actually understand that what you did was wrong, regardless of where either of us ended up? She thought about that for a long moment. Both, she said finally. I'm sorry because I'm experiencing exactly what I put you through, and it's hell. But I'm also sorry because even if I'd never lost everything, even if Trevor and I were still together and happy, what I did to you was inexcusable. I just wouldn't have realized it without this happening to me. At least you're honest. It's all I have left. We stood there in the morning sun, 2 sisters who used to build blanket forts and share secrets, now strangers connected only by blood and bitterness. I'm not going to give you money, I said. I know. I'm not going to let you stay here. I understand. But I'm going to do something else. She looked up, confused. I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me, a Dave Ramsey link and the address to the nearest shelter, and then I'm going to watch what you do with it. Because you were right about one thing. I did learn something from that experience. I learned who I was when everything was stripped away. I learned what I was capable of when I had nothing but myself to rely on. I pulled out my phone and texted her the same shelter information she'd sent me 5 years ago. You think you're going to be homeless in 2 weeks. You're probably right. So you have 2 weeks to figure out who you are when you have nothing. 2 weeks to learn what I learned in that Honda. This is cruel, she said quietly. No, I replied. This is fair. Cruel was letting your sister freeze in her car while you sipped margaritas in Mexico. Fair is giving you the exact same chance you gave me. She looked at her phone, at the shelter address, at the Dave Ramsey link. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not as strong as you? Then you'll learn that too. She stood there for another minute, then walked back to her car. I watched her sit in the driver's seat, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. Then she started the engine and drove away. Mom called 10 minutes later. Your sister just called me crying. What did you say to her? The truth. She said you're making her be homeless, that you could help her but you're choosing to let her suffer. She made me be homeless, I said. I could have not suffered, but she chose to let me. That was different. How? You were young. You could bounce back. She's older now, more fragile. This is going to break her. Then maybe she shouldn't have broken me first. I didn't raise you to be this cold, Mom said. You raised me to learn from my experiences. I'm just applying the lessons my sister taught me. She hung up without saying goodbye. The next 2 weeks were quiet. No calls from my sister. No visits. Mom stopped reaching out after I refused to engage with her guilt trips. Dad never called. He'd agreed with my sister 5 years ago that I needed to learn responsibility, so at least he was consistent now. I went about my life, worked on my new business venture, had dinner with friends, went to the gym, bought groceries without checking prices, lived in the house my sister had refused to share. On day 14, my doorbell rang at 6 in the morning. My sister stood there in the same clothes, but something was different. She looked clean. Her hair was washed. Her eyes were clear. I got a job, she said. Okay. It's at a call center. $10 an hour. I start Monday. Good for you. I'm staying at the women's shelter on Oakmont. I have a cot in a room with 5 other women. One of them snores so loud I barely sleep. The bathroom has 1 shower for 20 people, but it's warm and it's safe, and I'm grateful for it. I waited. I applied to 53 jobs in 2 weeks. I got rejected from 52 of them. The call center was the only place that gave me a chance. It's humiliating work for someone with my resume, but it's work. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know I'm doing it. I'm not asking Mom and Dad for money. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm doing exactly what you had to do. And it's the worst thing I've ever experienced, which means I'm finally understanding what I put you through. Every night at that shelter, I lie awake thinking about how you did this in January. In your car, alone, while I was sipping cocktails and posting about being blessed. She wiped her eyes. I want you to know that I get it now. And I'm so sorry. Not because I want something from you, just because you deserve to hear it. I nodded. Okay, that's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I don't know. That you forgive me? That we can start over? That eventually we can be sisters again? I don't know if we can, I said honestly. 5 years ago, I learned that family is just a word unless people choose to make it mean something. You taught me that when things get hard, I'm on my own. I can't unlearn that. So we're done? Forever? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I'm not going to pretend that your apology fixes 5 years of knowing my sister didn't care if I lived or died, as long as her life stayed comfortable. She nodded slowly. That's fair. You should go. You don't want to be late for your first day. It's not until Monday. Then you should go prepare. She turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, you were the strongest person I knew 5 years ago, and I should have told you that instead of judging you, and you're still the strongest person I know now. After she left, I made coffee and sat in my living room, looking at all the space I had. 3 empty guest rooms, a home office I barely used, a basement that was just storage. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Thank you for not making this easy. I didn't deserve easy. I deserved exactly what you gave me. I didn't respond. 3 months passed. My sister texted occasionally with updates. She'd moved from the shelter to a room in someone's basement. She was taking extra shifts. She'd applied for 3 better jobs and got rejected from all of them. She never asked for anything, never hinted that I should help. Just kept me updated like she was checking in with a distant acquaintance. Then one night she called. "I need to tell you something," she said. "What?" "Trevor contacted me. He wants to reconcile. He says leaving was a mistake, that the girl was just a phase, that he wants to work things out. And he offered to pay off my debts. All of them. Get me back on my feet. Let me move back into a house he bought. Not the one we lost, but a new one. He says we can start fresh." "What did you say?" I told him to go to hell. I sat up straighter. Because here's what I realized while I was lying in that shelter cot, listening to 5 women snore and cry and pray. I was miserable in my old life too. I just had expensive things to distract me from it. Trevor controlled every dollar, every decision, every moment of my day. I couldn't work because he said it made him look bad. I couldn't have friends he didn't approve of. I couldn't even decorate my own house without his permission. She paused. I thought losing everything meant losing my life, but actually, losing everything meant finally being free. For the first time since I married him, I make my own choices. They're small choices. What shift to work, what room to rent, what to eat for dinner, but they're mine. "That's good," I said carefully. "I called to tell you that I understand now why you built everything back yourself, why you didn't take shortcuts, why you worked those terrible jobs instead of finding some rich boyfriend to solve your problems. It's not just about the money. It's about knowing you did it yourself. Took you long enough to figure that out." "I'm a slow learner," she said. "Always have been." We talked for another hour. Really talked, for the first time in 5 years. She told me about the women at the shelter, the ones who'd become unexpected friends, the single mother working 3 jobs, the college student who'd been kicked out for being gay, the elderly woman whose social security wasn't enough to cover rent. "They're all just like me," she said. "Normal people who got knocked down. Some made mistakes. Some just had bad luck. But none of them deserved to suffer. And neither did you." "No," I agreed. "I didn't. I wish I'd understood that 5 years ago." Me too. 6 months after that first visit, my sister called with news. She'd been promoted to supervisor at the call center. She was making $50 an hour now. She'd moved into a studio apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. "I'm taking you to dinner," she said. "Nothing expensive, just Olive Garden. But I want to take you out and say thank you." "For what?" "For giving me exactly what I needed, even though it wasn't what I wanted." We met at the Olive Garden on Thursday night. She looked different. Thinner from irregular meals and stress, but somehow healthier. Like she'd shed something toxic along with her comfortable life. "I've been thinking," she said over breadsticks, "about that night I called you crying. About what would have happened if you'd just given me money." "What about it?" "I would have taken your money, gotten back on my feet, and learned absolutely nothing. I would have gone right back to judging people for being poor, assuming they just needed to work harder. I would have stayed the same terrible person I was." She broke a breadstick in half. "But you didn't let me. You made me live through what you lived through. And now I'm different. I sponsor a woman at the shelter. I volunteer serving meals on weekends. I actually understand what it means to struggle, and I'm grateful for that, even though it was hell." "You're welcome," I said. "Are we okay? I mean, really okay?" I thought about that. About 5 years of hurt and anger. About that Honda Civic and those freezing nights. About her photos from Cabo and her comments about tough love. "We're getting there," I said finally. "But it's going to take time." "I have time," she said. "I'll wait as long as you need." 1 year after my sister showed up at my door, we had Sunday brunch together. It was her idea, and she paid. Not because she had to prove anything, but because she wanted to. She'd been promoted again. She was making $20 an hour now and had started taking online classes toward a degree in social work. She wanted to help people like the women she'd met at the shelter. "I've been thinking about having you over to my apartment," she said. "It's tiny and the neighbors are loud, but it's mine. I want you to see it." "I'd like that." "I mean it though. It's really small, like 400 square feet. Your closet is probably bigger." "I don't care about the size." She smiled. 5 years ago, I would have been mortified to have you see where I lived. I would have made excuses, but now I'm proud of it. I earned every square foot of that space myself." "Good," I said. "You should be proud." Mom joined us for brunch the next month. It was awkward at first. She'd sided with my sister 5 years ago and stayed silent during my homelessness. She'd called me vindictive when I refused to help my sister. Now she didn't seem to know where she stood. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. "Both of you, actually. I failed you both in different ways." We waited. "I told myself that not helping you 5 years ago was teaching you responsibility," she said to me. "But really I was just uncomfortable watching you struggle. So I convinced myself you needed to figure it out alone. And when your sister needed help, I judged her for getting into that position instead of offering support." "Why didn't you help either of us?" my sister asked. Mom looked down at her plate. "Because your father and I had our own financial problems we weren't telling anyone about. We'd overspent for years, trying to look successful. When you needed help, we couldn't afford it without admitting we were broke too. That explained a lot." "We're okay now," Mom continued. "We sold the big house, downsized, paid off our debts. But by the time we could have helped, you'd both already made it through the worst of it without us." "So what now?" I asked. "Now I'm trying to be the mother I should have been before. Better late than never, I suppose." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still wounds, still complicated feelings, but it was honest, which was more than we'd had in years. 2 years after that morning, my sister showed up angry at my door. We were sitting in my living room on Christmas Eve. She'd brought homemade cookies, not fancy ones, just simple chocolate chip made in her tiny apartment kitchen. Remember when we used to make these with Grandma? She asked, before she died? Yeah, we'd fight over who got to lick the spoon. You always won because you were older. She laughed. And now you're richer and more successful. Funny how things change. You're not doing too bad yourself. Didn't you say you got accepted into that graduate program? Full scholarship, she said proudly. For my MSW, I start in January. That's incredible. It's weird. 2 years ago, I was drowning. Now I'm going back to school to help other people who are drowning. Life's strange like that. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Why did you finally forgive me? I know we're okay now, but when did you decide to let it go? I thought about that. I don't know if I decided exactly. It just happened gradually. Every time you updated me, every time you chose to keep struggling instead of taking the easy way out, every time you showed up and didn't ask for anything. You weren't just apologizing with words. You were apologizing with your whole life. That's all I could do. It was enough. She wiped her eyes. I'm really glad we're here. Not just in this nice house, though it's lovely, but here, together, after everything. Me too. Do you ever think about how different things would be if I'd just let you stay with me 5 years ago? Sometimes. What do you think would have happened? Honestly, I think you would have lorded it over me forever. Every time we disagreed about something, you would have reminded me of how you helped me when I had nothing, and I would have felt like I owed you for the rest of my life. You're probably right, she admitted. I was pretty self-righteous back then. You were terrible. I was, she agreed. But I'm better now. At least I hope I am. You are. You're one of the best people I know, actually. She looked at me in surprise. Really? Really? Because you didn't just say sorry. You became sorry. You let yourself be broken down and built back up into someone new. Most people never do that. Most people don't get forced to by their sister. True. I am pretty ruthless. We both laughed. 3 years after my sister lost everything, she graduated with her master's degree in social work. I attended the ceremony and cheered embarrassingly loud when her name was called. Mom and Dad were there too, in the cheap seats they could afford, crying with pride. At dinner afterward, my sister made a toast. To my family, she said, who taught me that rock bottom is just a foundation to build something better on. To second chances, Mom added. To first chances, I corrected. Because what we're building now is completely new. We clinked glasses. That night, my sister pulled me aside. I got a job offer, she said. At the shelter where I stayed. They want me to be their new program director. That's perfect for you. It doesn't pay much. Less than I'd make at a private practice or hospital. But it feels right, you know? Going back to help the place that helped me. Then you should take it. I am. I start next month. She paused. I also wanted to ask you something. What? The shelter is trying to raise money for renovations. Better showers, more beds, a proper kitchen. Would you be willing to make a donation? I'm not asking for me. I just know they need it. How much do they need? About $200,000 to do everything they want. I thought about my bank account, about the money sitting there that I barely thought about anymore. I'll write them a check for the full amount, I said. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely, but on one condition. What? You can't tell them it's from me. Say it's from an anonymous donor. I don't need recognition. Why anonymous? Because this isn't about me feeling good about myself. It's about making sure other women don't have to shower at a truck stop when they're at their lowest point. She hugged me then, hard and long. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for this. For everything, for giving me exactly what I deserved instead of what I wanted, for showing me who I could become if I was willing to do the work. You did the work yourself, I said. I just refused to take it away from you. The shelter renovation finished 6 months later. On the opening day, I went with my sister to see the new facilities. The women staying there had no idea I'd funded it, which was exactly how I wanted it. This is amazing, one woman said to my sister. Real showers with hot water, a kitchen where we can actually cook, beds that don't feel like prison cots. Whoever donated this money is an angel, my sister smiled. They're not an angel. They're just someone who remembers what it's like. 5 years after that freezing January in my Honda Civic. 5 years after my sister refused to help me. 4 years after I refused to help her. My sister called with news. I'm buying a house, she said. Really? It's nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, needs work. But it's mine. Well, it will be mine in 30 years after I pay off the mortgage. That's incredible. I'm proud of you. I want you to come see it before I close. Tell me if you think I'm making a mistake. I drove to the address she gave me. It was a small bungalow in a working-class neighborhood, with a chain-link fence and a yard full of weeds. The paint was peeling and the porch sagged slightly. My sister was waiting outside, practically bouncing with excitement. I know it's not much, she said, but it has good bones, and I can fix it up gradually. It's perfect, I said honestly. You mean that? I do, because it's yours. You earned it. We walked through together. The floors creaked. The kitchen was ancient. The bathroom had pink tile from the 1960s, but it was solid and it was hers. The best part, she said, is that it has 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for whoever needs it. What do you mean? I mean, if someone calls me at midnight, broke and desperate, with nowhere to go, I'm going to have a room ready for them. Because I know what it's like when no one will help. I felt my throat tighten. That's really beautiful, I managed to say. I learned from the best, she said, smiling. You didn't just teach me a lesson 5 years ago. You taught me who I never want to be again. And more importantly, who I can choose to become instead. We stood in that empty house. 2 sisters who'd destroyed and rebuilt their relationship from nothing. And I realized something. The anger I'd carried for 5 years was completely gone. Not because she'd apologized enough or suffered enough or earned enough, but because she'd become someone new, someone I actually liked and respected. I'm glad you called me that night, I said. She looked surprised. Even though you were broke and desperate? Especially because of that. It forced us both to figure out who we really were when everything else was stripped away. And who are we? Survivors, I said. Both of us in different ways. She nodded. I'll take that. 6 years after my sister refused to help me, 5 years after I refused to help her, we spent Thanksgiving in her little house with the creaky floors and outdated kitchen. She'd fixed it up slowly, room by room, doing most of the work herself. Mom and Dad came too, older and humbler than they used to be. We ate turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, and no one talked about who had money and who didn't, who was successful and who'd failed. We just talked. At one point, my sister raised her glass. To family, she said, who we choose to become for each other, not who we're forced to be by blood. To second chances, Mom added. To hard lessons, Dad said quietly. To surviving, I finished. We drank together. 4 people who'd all failed each other in different ways and somehow found our way back. After dinner, my sister and I did dishes together in her tiny kitchen. Can I tell you something? She asked. Always. That night 5 years ago when I turned you away, I didn't just ruin your life for a month. I ruined my own life forever. What do you mean? I mean, I became someone I hated. Someone who valued comfort over compassion. Someone who could watch their sibling suffer and call it a life lesson. And I stayed that person until I lost everything and had to rebuild from scratch. She scrubbed a plate thoughtfully. So when you refused to help me, you weren't just teaching me a lesson. You were giving me the only path back to being human again. And I'm grateful for that, even though it was hell. You're welcome, I said, though I'm not sure I was being that noble. Mostly I was just angry and wanted you to hurt like I hurt. I know, but it worked out the same in the end. It did. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. 2 sisters who'd learned that sometimes the cruelest kindness is refusing to save someone from themselves. 7 years after sleeping in my Honda Civic, 6 years after my sister lost everything, we stood in my living room on Christmas morning, watching the sun rise through the windows. Do you remember what you asked me that day you showed up at my door? She asked. Which part? You asked if I was sorry because I was in the same position, or if I was sorry because I understood what I did was wrong regardless of where we both ended up. I remember. I told you both and it was true. But now looking back, I realized something else. What? I was sorry for both those reasons, but I stayed sorry and became better for a third reason, which was because I saw who you became after surviving what I put you through. And I wanted to become that person too. Strong enough to build something from nothing. Compassionate enough to help others without expecting anything back. Secure enough to not need external validation. You showed me what was possible. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not trying to flatter you, she continued. I'm just saying that refusing to help me was the greatest gift you could have given me, because it forced me to become someone I'm proud of. Someone who can look in the mirror without flinching. I'm proud of you too, I said. Even though I was terrible to you, especially because you were terrible to me and chose to become better. Anyone can be good from the start. It takes real strength to be bad and then change. She wiped her eyes. When did you get so wise? Probably during those freezing nights in my car thinking about how my sister was in Cabo drinking margaritas. We both laughed. Too soon? I asked. No, she said. It's been long enough. We can laugh about it now. And we did. We laughed about all of it. The Honda Civic, the shelter, the extended stay motel, the Dave Ramsey links, the angry phone calls, the years of hurt and healing. We laughed until we cried. And then we cried until we laughed again, and somewhere in that cycle, we let go of the last bits of pain we'd been carrying. 8 years after I lost everything, 7 years after my sister refused to help me, 6 years after I refused to help her, we were different people living different lives and being better to each other because of it. My sister called me from the shelter where she worked. We have a situation, she said. There's a woman here about your age who lost her tech job and her apartment in the same week. She's sleeping in her car. She reminds me so much of you 8 years ago that it's scary. What does she need? A chance. Just a chance to get back on her feet without someone judging her for falling in the first place. Send me her information, I said. I'll hire her as a contractor for my company. 3 months guaranteed, decent pay, remote work so she can do it from the library if she needs to. After that, we'll see if it's a good fit for something permanent. Just like that? Just like that. You know, most people who survive what you survived would just want to forget it ever happened. But you keep finding ways to help people in the same situation. That's because I remember what I needed wasn't just money. It was someone believing I could do it. Someone giving me a real chance instead of charity or judgment. That's exactly what this woman needs. Then that's what she'll get. 3 months later, that woman wasn't just still employed. She was thriving. She'd found an apartment, paid off some debts, and was rebuilding her life. She sent me a thank you card that said simply, "You gave me a chance when I was invisible." I'll never forget that. I showed it to my sister at our weekly coffee meetup. That's beautiful, she said. It's what you should have given me 8 years ago. She nodded. You're right, but I'm giving it to people now. We both are. Maybe that's worth something. It is, I agreed. It doesn't erase the past, but it builds something better for the future. That's all we can do, isn't it? Be better than we were. It's enough. 10 years after I lost everything, 9 years after my sister refused to help me, 8 years after I refused to help her, we sat together at my kitchen table, drinking coffee and talking about nothing important. Do you ever wish things had happened differently? She asked suddenly. In what way? That I'd helped you when you asked, that we'd skipped all the pain and anger and just stayed close. I thought about that for a long time. No, I said finally, because then we'd still be the people we were before. You'd still be someone who valued comfort over compassion. I'd still be someone who hadn't been tested. We'd be comfortable and complacent, and probably miserable in ways we wouldn't even recognize. So, you're glad it happened? I'm glad who we became because it happened. The journey was awful, but the destination is pretty good. She smiled. That's such a you answer, making tragedy sound like a gift. It wasn't a gift. It was hell. But we made something good from it anyway, which is different. I love you, she said suddenly. I don't think I've said that enough. I love you too, I replied. Even though you let me freeze in my car. Even though I let you freeze in your car, she agreed. And even though you made me live in a roach motel, especially because I made you live in a roach motel. We raised our coffee cups in a mock toast, two sisters who'd hurt each other and healed each other and become better because of both. The present day, I'm sitting in my office when my phone rings. It's my sister. I need to tell you something, she says. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually. I just got offered the director position at a women's shelter network. It oversees 12 shelters across 3 states. It's a huge job with huge responsibilities. That's incredible. It is. But it pays less than I make now, and the hours will be brutal, and I'll be dealing with tragedy every single day. But you're going to take it? I already accepted, she says, because I keep thinking about that woman who slept in my old bed at the shelter, and the one after her, and how someone needs to fight for them the way no one fought for us when we needed it. You're going to be amazing at this. I learned from the best, she says. You taught me that refusing to enable someone isn't the same as refusing to care, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is force them to find their own strength. You taught me something too, I say. What's that? That people can change. That being cruel once doesn't mean being cruel forever. That redemption is real if someone's willing to do the work. We both did the work, she says. Yeah, I agree. We did. After we hang up, I sit in my office thinking about how strange life is. How the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best version of myself. How refusing to help my sister was simultaneously the cruelest and kindest thing I could have done. How sometimes being broken is the only way to rebuild yourself into something stronger. My sister and I talk every week now. We're real with each other in a way we never were before. No pretense, no judgment, no scorekeeping. Just 2 people who survived their own destructions and chose to build something better from the rubble. Is our relationship perfect? No. Do I sometimes still feel a flash of anger when I remember that freezing January? Yes. Does she sometimes still feel shame about the person she was? Absolutely. But we're honest about it. We acknowledge the hurt instead of pretending it never happened. And slowly, year by year, we're building something that might actually be better than what we had before we broke everything. Because the truth is, sometimes things need to break completely before you can put them back together right. Sometimes the only way forward is through the worst thing you can imagine. Sometimes refusing to save someone is the only way to help them save themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the cruelest thing you can do to someone is also the kindest. My sister taught me that when she refused to help me. I taught it back to her when I did the same. And now we both know it, carry it, live it. Not because we're vindictive or heartless, but because we understand something most people never learn. That true compassion sometimes looks like cruelty. That real love sometimes requires letting someone struggle. And that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or shelter or comfort. It's the chance to discover their own strength. Even if they have to freeze in a car to find it. Even if they have to live in a roach motel to understand it. Even if it takes years of pain and healing and hard conversations to finally arrive at something real. We did all of that. We survived all of that. And here we are on the other side. 2 sisters who destroyed each other and rebuilt each other and became better people because we refused to take the easy path. I wouldn't change a thing. Neither would she. And that's how we both know we finally got it right.